Administration Commissioner Jay Dardenne, thank you for jumping in and doing this for us so quickly this morning. We want to talk TOPS funding. It looks like there's going to be a little bit of a change, correct, Jay?
Hey, good morning, Aaron. Well, there is. It's been discussed, obviously, during the course of the various special sessions earlier this year. TOPS is only funded at 70% for this fiscal year. The legislature really insisted with legislation that the first semester be fully funded, but it only applies to the dollars that were raised during that second special session. So TOPS is going to be funded at around 93%, I think is the number, for the first semester, and it will only be funded to the tune of about 47 or so percent in the second semester. So that's going to be a bit of a sticker shock for people who haven't been keeping up or who aren't aware that the TOPS funding did not meet full funding level.
So bluntly put, Mr. J, this is going to be, for a lot of people, hell, for thousands of people across, this is going to be a pretty big bite of cash, yes?
Well, it is, depending on what school you go to, obviously, but for TOPS recipients, it's going to be a blow. There was just not enough money raised to be able to fully fund TOPS, given the other challenges we had in the budget this year, a projected $2 billion deficit in last year's budget, beginning of the session, and then with some of the revenue that was raised, it was down to almost $1 billion. And the legislature raised a significant amount of revenue. They deserve credit for that, but it wasn't enough to fund the budget at the same level as it was in existence last fiscal year.
Pardon me, Jay.
No inflation.
Budgetarily, what sort of efforts after the legislative session, if any, what sort of efforts were made by the state, by the administration, by others involved to sort of come up with the cash, the funding from somewhere?
Well, there was no way to do that. There's a finite amount of money that's available to the state based upon what the Revenue Estimating Conference tells us is going to be coming in, and we have only the money that was raised by the legislature in taxes. You can't make up any more money or find any more money, so you have to deal with your budgets prudently. We've advised all the departments and agencies. I used the words judiciously and cautiously yesterday to handle their budgets because we're afraid that there may be more mid-year cuts this year because of the shortfall we are going to experience from last fiscal year, which we're just completing. We'll know in a couple of weeks exactly how the books closed on fiscal year 16, which ended on June 30th. And I believe and I'm concerned that there's going to be a shortfall from last year's budget not meeting the revenue estimate, and we'll have to make that up from this year's budget.
As we've got youngsters going back to high school, going back to class now, they were looking forward to TOPS. Where do you see the future of TOPS, Jay? You're a pretty straight shooter. Is this something that's going to ultimately go away?
No. And I think the future of TOPS actually is bright. I think there's a recognition. I know there's a recognition on the part of the governor, and I know there's a recognition on the part of the legislature that this has been probably the most beneficial thing the state has done over my adult lifetime in terms of a budget priority. And I think there's a commitment to make sure that TOPS is fully funded. The governor wanted to fully fund TOPS this year, but there was not enough money raised to responsibly spread it around in a way that would fully fund TOPS. I think you'll see in next year's budget the governor's going to propose, hopefully, fully funding TOPS, and hopefully the legislature will find the money to do that. This is a popular program with good reason. It's had a great effect on education and motivating students in Louisiana, and we want to see it survive. There were some changes put in place by the legislature last year that I think are appropriate.
How much lead time did college students and or high school students who were expecting this money as they enter college, how much sort of lead time did they have from the state that the money wasn't going to be there that they thought was going to be?
Well, the second special session ended before the close of the fiscal year in June, so everybody knew or was told in June what the picture was going to look like. I think the breakdown between what's paid in the first semester and what's paid in the second semester is something that has not really been known as much by people because it just hadn't got as much attention when the legislative sessions ended. But I think the answer to your question is in mid-June, everybody knew what the TOPS funding level was going to be.
How concerned are you, and we're talking with Jay Dardenne, Commissioner of Administration, how concerned are you, Jay, that in the spring semester the funding's at 47%, that this could result in us losing some of our best and brightest to other states?
I sure hope it doesn't. And I hope our students will recognize the quality education they can get at Louisiana universities. And they've had some time, and that was the motivation, I think, behind the legislature trying to fully fund fully funded as best as possible in the fall semester when there was less time to prepare, so that parents and students would have some additional months to think about where they will find the money to pay the differential between approximately 50% of TOPS. I hope students will stay here. It may result in some people taking a semester off or waiting to see what happens, but I hope that's not the case.
Jay Dardenne, Administration Commissioner, thank you for jumping in and joining us on such short notice. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Rob.
You bet.